Okay, let's get right into it. There's a massive global shift happening right now in how companies talk about their impact on the world. We're moving away from, those glossy reports full of promises and into an era of hard data backed by actual proof. And believe me, it's changing everything. But then, just as the world seems to be speeding up, you see a headline like this: Singapore, a huge financial hub, is tapping the brakes. And you might think, whoa, hold on, isn't that a step backward? But it actually tells you just how massive and complicated this whole shift really is. So, why the pause? That's the big question, right? Well, the answer is that this transition from vague promises to concrete proof is incredibly complex. This isn't just some small tweak to the rules. It is a genuine revolution in corporate reporting, and revolutions are never simple. What we're really talking about is a move from an era of voluntary and, let's be honest, often inconsistent reporting to a future of mandatory, rigorous, and comparable disclosures. It's a fundamental change in the rules of the game for businesses everywhere. Here's the core problem. For years, sustainability reports were all over the map. One company measured its water use one way, another company a totally different way. This made it pretty much impossible for investors or any of us to compare apples to apples and really understand the risks a company faces from big issues like climate change. So, to fix this mess, a whole new set of rulebooks is being written. The goal here is pretty simple: create a common language for sustainability. The idea is that a report from a company in Japan can be understood and directly compared to one from a company in Germany. At the very heart of creating this common language is the ISSB. Now, the easiest way to think about it is like the IFRS for financial accounting, but for sustainability. It's creating that global baseline, and it's really focused on what investors need to know to make informed decisions. But while the ISSB is kind of setting the floor, others are building the whole house. Europe's CSRD, for example, is way more comprehensive. It goes beyond just what investors care about and looks at a company's impact on society and the environment much more broadly. And the real kicker? Its rules extend to a lot of non-EU companies too. And this is a perfect illustration that we're moving way beyond just carbon emissions. The new frontier is nature. Companies are finally waking up to the fact that their supply chains and their profits depend on healthy ecosystems. So now you have frameworks like the TNFD pushing them to report on their relationship with biodiversity, with water, with the entire natural world. Now, this brings us to one of the most important concepts in this entire revolution, especially in Europe. It's called double materiality, and it fundamentally redefines what's considered important enough for a company to report on. Let's break this down because it's key. On one side, you have financial materiality. This is the traditional view. How do things like climate change or water scarcity create risks and opportunities for the company's profits? It's an outside-in perspective. But on the other side is impact materiality. This is the reverse. How do the company's actions, its pollution, its labor practices impact the world? That's an inside-out view. So the crucial point here is, double materiality says you have to look at both. It's a full 360-degree view. A company can no longer just worry about how the world affects its bottom line. It must also report on how its bottom line affects the world. That is a huge change. Okay, so with all these new rules and new ways of thinking, how are companies actually coping with all this? How are the leaders adapting to this new reality on the ground? Well, first things first, it's being taken seriously at the very top. A recent PwC study found that 45%, that's nearly half, of boards in the Asia-Pacific region now have formal responsibility for sustainability. This isn't a side project for the marketing department anymore. This is a boardroom issue. And they're definitely putting their money where their mouth is. The same study shows 42% of companies now link executive pay to hitting sustainability targets. When a CEO's bonus depends on it, it has become a core part of the business strategy. This quote from a leader at Singtel really just sums it all up. Getting this right requires strong leadership and education right from the top. It has to be completely embedded in the company culture. So what are the key lessons from the leaders who are on the front lines of this? Well, number one is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Just get started. Second, you have to break down those internal silos. This isn't just a finance job or a sustainability job. It requires collaboration across the entire company. The overarching themes are pretty clear. Be proactive, work together, and be ready to adapt.
Okay, so we have new rules and we have new strategies, but there's one final, crucial piece to this puzzle that makes the entire system work, and that piece is trust.
I mean, how do we really know the data a company reports is accurate? That's where assurance comes in. You can think of it as the sustainability equivalent of a financial audit. It's an independent, third-party check to verify that the numbers are real and the claims are actually true.
And listen, this isn't just a nice to have thing anymore. It's rapidly becoming the standard. The numbers here really speak for themselves. In just a few years, the percentage of global companies getting their ESG data assured jumped from about half to nearly 70%. The demand for trusted information is just surging.
And to meet that surging demand, the process of verification itself is being standardized. Just like we have rules for financial audits, new global standards like ISSA 5000 are being created to make sure that a sustainability assurance engagement is just as rigorous and just as reliable. So, as we see all of this coming together, the standardized rules, double materiality, the rigorous assurance, it brings us to a final big question. Maybe that pause in Singapore wasn't really a delay, but actually preparation for this new reality. Because in an era of radical transparency where this data becomes as important as financial data, who are going to be the winners and who is going to be left behind? That's what we'll all be watching.